Hello and welcome to Because Things Can Be Different, the podcast that discusses all things business and design. So this is episode 7, and today myself and Cameron are going to be discussing the 4 key points a hospitality business needs to consider as COVID restrictions are eased. So there's 4 points. Cameron, do you want to elaborate on what those 4 points are?
Yeah. So we're looking at well, first of all, we've concentrated on any government restrictions, etc. We've concentrated on the UK because that is where we're based.
Yeah.
Also, we do work in the States and Europe, and it's quite difficult because it changes from country and state. So we've kind of kept it the UK. They are similar across the world, so do check with your own local authority, council, anything like that, to make sure that they're applicable. But there's lots of stuff in here that doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's definitely something you should look at and will help as you come out of the lockdown. That's the main thing. So what are the key 4 points we're looking at, Mike?
So I think I'll start off by talking about what the current restrictions are in place and what the future steps are, because we're on that COVID-19 roadmap and what that means for hospitality in general. A big element of that, I won't go into too much now, outside dining, and does it make sense to a business right now? And the branding side, so that's point 3, and the focus for a business as lockdown is eased. One of the biggest things, number 4, should you be investing back into your interior? Because at some point that interior is going to open up. But right now, what is the state of play for a hospitality business? So the roadmap that we've started, which step 1 started, I think it was the 29th of March for the UK. As we know, venues can only serve takeaway. And the restrictions from that point of view, in general, not just for hospitality, rule of 6, and 2 households can meet. Starting on the 12th of April, if everything goes well with the 4 tests that are going to be put in place by the government. Step 2, hospitality venues can open outside spaces, and that is al-fresco. So
last check was that they were going to do this as well. So it looks like it's going to move forward. Yeah. And I think what's interesting is trying to figure out as a business whether you want to open up for that, because there's obviously a furlough scheme in the UK which the government is paying up to 80%, and it's also flexible, so it's whether you can work out the numbers and whether you have enough space to make it work, and do you want to not open and have your competition opening when you're not, is what we're going to discuss when it comes to the outside seating.
So I mean, there's a key thing to mention is what it means to a business, sort of hospitality business in general. There's a few facts and figures flying around, so we've tried to go through them and pick out the key points to discuss. We've noticed the same figure, 41,000 venues potentially opening their outdoor spaces to consumers. I think that figure is going to vary, but what that will do is it will provide the UK economy and hospitality in general with a much needed boost. Yeah. But there are a number of things, like you said, that we need to consider. So outdoor dining, the first and probably most important thing. So restaurants could look to maximise their outdoor bar, patio and lounge spaces. It's important, I think, for them to maybe consider creative ways to make use of also street fronts, car parks, gardens and terraces.
There is some amazing examples of this. I was judging the Frame Awards in January, and actually the one that we deemed to be the winner of that month's roundup was an outdoor seating solution that someone created. I believe it was in New York, and where they had the riots, they had a lot of plywood from boarding up shops, and then someone CNC cut them into this kind of terrace space that then restaurants, it went down the street, and restaurants then utilised it. Also, a customer of ours in The Hague they've got permission to use some of the street for seating. So check again with your local authority, but then don't be scared of not lobbying, I don't like the word lobbying, but lobbying your local government to say, look, we haven't got enough space, so we want to close this street and we want to put our tables out on the road, or, put people walking in the road and use the pavement for seating, because this is an incredible time and people have lost more money than anyone wants to think about. So don't be scared of pushing it and making it clear to your local authorities that, if they haven't got a scheme like closing roads down and pedestrianising them temporarily, then they should do. Don't be scared of arguing with them about that, because we know successfully some people that have done that successfully. It's changed their business in the last time the restrictions got eased. They actually had slightly more seating than they would if they were open, which is great. So,
I mean, I like you're saying, it does differ by location and obviously the type of business too. So there are a few figures presented by data analysts CGA that only 2 in 5 licensed premises have a permit, have a permanent space to trade outside. For example, more than 80% are pubs with beer gardens.
Yeah.
And I think it's something like 12% are actually restaurants that have outdoor spaces.
Yeah, it is quite rare, especially in the UK. I mean, in California, people have got huge outdoor spaces because of the weather. But in the UK, the weather has meant that, you don't really have to spend that money on having.
I mean, if you were in somewhere, for example, like Brighton, you've got a fantastic promenade terrace, maybe. So those are sort of locations that have that luxury.
Yeah, those guys are gonna kill it.
Yeah, whereas in a dense populated sort of city, you might not be.
Just in Brighton, just the lanes, for example, you can't physically put that many seats outside anyway. So, and London, New York, any major city does have a lot of those problems.
Yeah, and the same study as well also found that the numbers reopening may not be as high as we might expect, due to limitations on the space, for one, like we just said, but the cost of equipment and staffing as well. And we'll come on to like staffing later in the branding side. That's more about the customer service. But I think a lot of people have been either changing or not being able to work. So staffing issues will be a big problem.
Yeah, we've got, again, we won't mention any names of our clients and stuff, but we have got a client that was just opening before COVID. We were just fitting out or finishing designs and fitting out. They went to open in the first easing of restrictions. Yep. They staffed up, had these great people that had signed up to work for them, and then unfortunately, because of the rules in the UK on furlough scheme, he's had to let all of them go. So he's got a really hard start now coming out of this. So obviously the government's done a lot in the UK, and again, please do comment or email us and let us know how your individual countries and states are doing. But they've done a great job of helping people out, but there are hard stops on some of it, and I think that people have fallen through the gap with especially within food and beverage, and it's been the heaviest hit in a lot of cases. So it's something that there's sometimes there's nothing you can do.
So we don't want to be negative about this. Should this be a stopper? If you've got the ability to do it, take advantage of it. There are quite not strict guidelines, but specific guidelines for this in the UK. So you've got to be able to seat people 2 meters apart, and that's back-to-back seating between tables. Screens can be used if you're looking to have some sort of shelter in place to keep people either warm with heaters or keep the rain off. 50% of that shelter needs to be open, so the walls need to
I think that's going to be a key part as well, because a lot of people really took, in my opinion, the mick, because from a safety standpoint, they were just building complete tents and there was no difference from inside their building.
No, exactly.
And I think the government spotted that. So you do want to watch out for stuff like that. And that, again, will be globally, because this is the same disease pandemic that we're dealing with worldwide, so the problems are the same. You need airflow, etc. You don't want there to be stagnant air because it can be infected. So it's these things that we're looking out that they'll be looking out for. So just be clever, and do you want to be seen as a business that's trying to get around the rules, or do you want to be seen as a business that's responsible? Because I think that people will judge harshly.
That goes a long way to
and it's not long to wait now as well. From at least in the UK with herd immunity coming along well, and we think restrictions are going to be pretty much over and done with and not to be worried about in a matter of months rather than years. So don't ruin your reputation or cause a problem, or worse than that, get a fine from local authorities for an extra couple of weeks.
And if you are thinking about doing something like a bit more of an installation outside, fixed booth seating, which is a possibility. If you're going to do that, then the backs of the seats need to have some sort of separator, and they've got to be a minimum of 1.8 meters. So it just keeps any spread at a minimum. But space planning will be key. So if you're in an area where there's large volumes of restaurants that are opening up at the same time, and in close proximity, it's advised to consider the cumulative impact on the visitors. So you've got to think about the routes in which people are going to queue outside to get in, reconfigure seating to maintain social distancing, and have some sort of reservation system in place. So you've not got an influx of people all at one time. There's been some speculation in the news I've seen recently, especially in the UK, about how businesses aren't too keen on putting extra systems in place, mainly to do with the cost, I think. But we would recommend, later on we'll talk about the branding side, but have a look at sort of booking systems, because that's going to help a lot, not only from a business point of view, but from a track and trace point of view as well. You've got something to fall back on. So that does bring us on to the branding side. Consider obviously what the business's brand strategy is going to be moving forward, and what's in place and what may need to evolve as part of that. So we've covered a lot of branding already, haven't we, in our previous episodes. And I think we were straight in there with branding right at the start of the restrictions. So not a lot of what we would recommend from a brand point of view has changed. And if you haven't done what we've suggested previously,
or haven't listened to it, jump on it. But we can cover a little bit again. I mean, there's no harm in reminding people that we've got customers and we've got people that are nothing to do with us that we research and look at, who have really made this work for them. And they've created much more solid businesses off the back of realizing how almost weak their business was before. Now, obviously, our job is to go in and speak to people. They ask us to come in and look at their brand, or they want a rebrand, or they just normally new logo, and they don't realize that just a change of logo is not really going to do it. And I think it's forced people to see that and almost level up. And we've got customers that have improved their business and actually managed to create new revenue streams off the back of looking at their brand, either improving it or just putting it out there and changing the way they perceive it themselves, and then making sure the customers can engage with it. Because it's very hard to support a business that disappears. We have a very fond business that's near our old studio. We've actually moved, which is why everything looks a bit different. So it's a bit bare. Everything's in boxes at the moment. But there was a restaurant that is very close to our old studio that were friends of ours, and they had this issue where they did not value a brand, the name and the personalities of the people behind it at all. And they were serving really good quality food and had excellent customer service, but the overall look and experience of it was quite low. So when lockdown happened and you could go to takeaway, etc., they had lots of trouble trying to actually make that work financially. Where if they had a more solid brand where people like us that have been going there for many years wanted to support them, we found it really difficult ourselves, and we were based just around the corner from them. Their opening hours were sporadic. They hadn't really worked out what they could and couldn't do. They didn't change their menu to make it work a little better with takeaway, for example. And you might be asking, what's that to do with brand? Well, all of a sudden your product can become the thing. So we've got a customer that we've consulted with that their brand was very solid and people loved them. So then as soon as we went into lockdown, they couldn't serve espresso-based drinks to their customers face to face, but they could bottle up some really nice milk drinks, for example, and deliver them to their door. Guess what? Customers really wanted to support them, really wanted those good quality milk drinks delivered to their door while they're working at home. So then they built almost a separate business off of it. The key part of that was it was their brand and their brand loyalty and the story and the engagement with the guys that own it that was the thing that sparked that, and people wanted to support them, wanted to order those drinks. It's stuff like that I think a lot of people have realised. If you haven't realised that, take a long, hard look at your business model, at your brand, and seriously think about using this as a reason to come out swinging, it's a phrase we've used a lot since all of this started. You want to come out fighting. It doesn't a spitter and a spatter, and I think it's a massive risk of people going out of business if they do that. You need to see this now as an opportunity.
And if you're seeing your competitors, thrive potentially now, that's probably a good indication that's what they've done.
And importantly, if they're not and they're just doing it, let's not do the whole thing. Well, no one else is doing it.
No.
Great, that's a perfect reason to do it. Like the amount of people that live their business lives saying, well, our industry just doesn't do it that way. For me, that is the easiest and also point out the cheapest way of having massive disruption. If everyone's doing incredible stuff on a constant basis, it gets very expensive and very difficult to think of new ways of doing it. Yeah. If you're in an area where people just aren't trying, go and try. Instruct a branding guy, instruct a interior guy, instruct a commercial chef to rewrite your menu and really push it. If you're a chef yourself, sit down, think about why you started the business and what do you want to do differently to what you were doing before COVID. Use this as an ignition point, I think. Yeah. That's why I'm excited by it. For our business, we've made huge changes. Yeah. And because we work so heavily in food and beverage, it has affected our business in a big way. So rather than just sit there and wait for everything to come back and worry, we've really looked at changing things, making our business more effective. How can we help customers in more interesting ways? This podcast is one of them. So I think see it that way, because people that don't, I've got a horrible feeling they're going to start disappearing, which will be a real shame. But, yeah, you've been warned.
But I suppose there's certain things you can, especially with the restrictions easing and outdoor spacing becoming available, there's certain things that perhaps you can prepare for. I think one of the main things from a branding point of view, and I think a lot of people don't think of this subject as a branding element, because it clearly is customer service.
Yeah.
And the customer sentiment and behavior that you get back from the consumer. The biggest thing is going to be consumer expectations. As you open up and people come back to you, and if they're valued customers from pre-COVID, they're going to have a certain expectation. They may expect a certain level of service that is reminiscent of what happened pre-COVID. That might not be possible. So the best thing to do is to listen to what they say. So look out for what they're saying, their sentiments.
Not only that, ask them as well.
And ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, customer feedback.
Open up a bit of the conversation.
Is really important. And if you've got a good relationship with these existing customers, or even new customers, then monitor these changes in their concerns and their sentiment. The other thing as well is, what are hospitality staff going to be like now they're going to start coming back into a working environment? You're going to need to train people, I think, is the key thing there.
Yeah, definitely.
On the
policy, you're going to have to spark them up and remind them that it's work time. If they're existing guys, if they've gone and become a delivery driver, for example, because you couldn't afford to pay them, or like one of our customers couldn't actually keep them on furlough because it had missed the hiring time. They might be gone, so you might be hiring new people. There's a lot of people coming out of school that haven't got any job prospects at the moment, so they might be brand new to it. Well, before you might have just slowly but surely done it. And now I think you're going to have to think more, and because you're going to have to try and make every penny count, every customer in the door count. You want them to return. I mean, it should be treated like that anyway, but now I think it's very important. You start recovering some losses, making sure your business is coming out really strong. So that's going to be a key part of it. I'm aware of time, so I don't want to miss any key parts.
Okay. So let's move on then. I think that covers the customer service side of things. Ramping up your digital delivery for the brand, that's quite important. I think most importantly, people are going to want to know that they're safe when they come to you. So have a policy in place, put that on your website, put it in the interior, or not in the interior, but in the outside space as well, so people will know what that is you're doing to keep them safe. Drive traffic to your website, so create great content in social media. Positive content about reopening.
Pushing the fact that you're reopening, and also don't be scared to ask people to give you that support. Like, we would love our patrons to come back, or we're really looking forward to seeing you. We're seeing that working really well already, and we saw it in the last time restrictions came down. You don't be scared of don't pretend everything's been fine, because everyone knows it hasn't been. So then don't be scared of getting that more personal interaction with them. Web is the perfect way of doing that. And then driving people to your website from your social media, and having information there, photos, booking. Should we talk about the booking?
Yeah. Because that has a two-pronged approach. One, it's great for track and trace. Two, it will help streamline the income of people coming into the
You're going to know
restaurant.
what you've got coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's also the ability from a marketing side as well. As long as they're aware that their details they're inputting can be used that way, you could potentially use that.
Put them on a mailing list.
To put them on and get feedback.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking of just inviting them back and stuff. But yeah, I see what you mean. Get feedback on how your service was,
and that could go towards great reviews. If people are leaving great reviews on a business that has just reopened in this current pandemic, that's going to be amazing for business, surely.
Yeah, I mean, definitely 100% you need to start pushing Google reviews, because if you haven't noticed, it is important, and they've changed their algorithm and to be based around like semantics on web, i.e. how people engage with that brand. So getting Google reviews will be a key point. So how can you do that? Maybe when you pass them the check, it's got, please leave a Google review with a QR code to send them straight to your page. Make it easy. We all know, I can have a great experience. Do I go away, even though I know how much it works for a business? This is going to make me sound like a bad person, but I don't always go back and give a review because I'm doing something else. I'm talking to my wife, or I'm down the pub with my friends. I don't go back and go, oh, this is going to really help them. I say they were fantastic, that was a great meal, and then walk away. So make it easy. If you can just scan it and put a couple of words in on
even
Google,
click a star. I mean, how easy is that to just click a couple of stars?
Exactly.
Or 5 stars?
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Make it simple. And don't be scared of reminding people and asking them to help, because at times like this we could really do a review. Don't be scared of that, and make sure you train your staff to ask, and don't be embarrassed. And it's amazing doing some retail work while I was at university. It was amazing. I got trained by someone that had been in retail for years, and they just said, you wouldn't believe how many people don't get a sale because they haven't asked. And it's the same with a review. If you just ask and just mention, it's really important to us at the moment, that would be absolutely fantastic if you could help out. A lot of people will do it. And then everything changes. Your website becomes more visible. Your Google Maps listings will become more visible. If someone's searching for coffee, brunch, beer and a burger, and that's what you do, Google will reward, because people are interacting with your brand. Key piece of information there. You could change your entire business by getting that right. It's worth pointing out. Part of that is actually having a website. We sell websites. Fine, don't buy a website from us or any other agency, but build your own one. The amount of people we know, talk to, and discuss business with who don't have a website because they're food and beverage and it's bricks and mortar is ridiculous. Like, come on, we shouldn't be talking about this anymore. Get a website, and preferably a decent one, and sell yourselves on it.
And you can also offer incentives as well. That's a great part of marketing, especially now. So a little bit of a discount goes a long way. So the final step that we're going to talk about, final point even, is investing in your interior. Now, one is now the right time? Arguably, yes.
Yeah, it's something that sounds really weird. And again, we sell interiors, so I'm aware that it's got a conflict of interest here. So take us out of the equation and you're doing it yourself. A lot of the biggest problems that customers of ours suffer with is close down cost. You haven't got at the moment, you're closed. And if you haven't got outdoor space, you're going to be closed for a little longer. So now's a good time to go in, do a deep clean, kitchens and everything else. That hopefully goes without saying. But then, can you give it a lick of paint? Is it now time to invest in new furniture? Is it now time to just redo the whole thing? Have you taken advantage of some of the government-backed schemes for financing, for example? If you have, do you want to use it on staffing costs, or do you want to use it on creating so much more business with web and new interiors, brand, etc., that you can come out and you can afford the staffing because you've actually ramped up your business and you've got more customers than you did before? These are the things that we think are the most exciting parts. You've got no shutdown costs beyond what you're already incurring. So now is great. If you have zero money, go in there and do it yourself. Paint it at least, like scrape pounds, pennies together, dollars.
And there's also looking at the concept.
Yeah.
So you've got the ability to potentially become part of the and model, which I think you.
Yeah. So as most people watching this will know, we're quite quite big in the coffee industry and do quite a lot of that. And the coffee and model is becoming a key part of the industry, because just coffee on its own can be hard to make enough money on in key areas. So coffee and food, coffee and alcohol. So yeah, is it a time to look at your model and switch it? I would say yes. If you aren't already doing it, then you need to look at that and activate it now. It's going to be key.
Yeah. Especially as step 3 of the roadmap, because there is that looming as well. So as it states, based on government guidelines, if everything goes well, 17th of May, potentially we could see interiors opening up.
Yeah.
So there's some time there. I know 17th of May sounds a bit scary, but if you're looking at it, definitely now is the right time.
And it's key to say, some of our international clients, we've got customers in the States that are literally trying to do this now, and they've actually been allowed to stay more open than a lot of places in the UK, but they still know the revenue's not the same, so they want to do it now while they're not losing out as much money as when everything comes back. They want to come out swinging, as we're saying. Okay.
So I think that covers about everything.
Yeah. If anyone's got any questions, please comment below. Like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or listening to it on any podcast supplier. It'll help us get further. We've got some interesting guests that are going to come and speak soon, so we won't give too much away, but they're going to come and talk about projects they're working on, industries they work on, and their opinions on certain things that we are involved in ourselves. So yeah, please support us, and we will continue to try and support you and give some information away that normally we charge really good money for.
We do. But thank you for taking the time to listen and watch this episode of Because Things Can Be Different. And bye for now.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.